Hi everyone, this is Donny Lowy from Closeout I hope you're doing well today. I have a wholesale business in New York. You are welcome to visit my warehouse. You can send a friend or a relative here. You can also visit the website. Alright, so today I'd like to discuss with you how to sell wholesale clothing in Nigeria. I have many customers from Nigeria. I have customers who have boutiques in Nigeria. I have customers in the United States who buy clothing and send it to Nigeria so it can be resold. So I have a good amount of experience and ideas that I gain from interacting with my customers and from research that I've done on my own. So I'd like to discuss with you the different levels of selling wholesale clothing in Nigeria. The first level is being the importer who is bringing in the clothing to Nigeria, or even being the exporter who is sending clothing to someone in Nigeria for resale purposes. Now, if you are the importer of the clothing, so you're going to be at the top of the chain. In other words, you're going to be bringing clothing to Nigeria. You might bring it to Lagos, you might bring it to Port Harcourt, and from there it's going to be distributed to retailers in Nigeria. If you are going to be importing clothing, it's very important that you ahead of time know the market that you're going to be selling to, because the market in Lagos and the market in Abuja have different characteristics. The market in Delta State has different characteristics than in different areas of Nigeria. You also want to know the price that the customers can afford to buy that clothing at. Even if you're the importer who is not selling the clothing to the final end user, let's say you're selling the clothing to a wholesaler who then will be selling it to a retailer, and the retailer will be selling it to the end user, you still have to know how much the end user can afford to pay for that clothing, so it gives you an idea how much you can sell that clothing for at the wholesale level, because remember, every level is going to be marking up the clothing. You also want to know what kind of clothing people like, as far as brands and as far as styles, and even as far as the quality of the clothing. Nigeria is a very fashionable country. Nigerians love brand name clothing, so if you bring in brand name clothing, you're going to be at a big advantage compared to people who bring in non-branded clothing, especially with China flooding the market in Nigeria with non-branded clothing. It's going to be very hard to compete based on price, so I would recommend that you focus on brand name clothing where you can sell that clothing at a premium. So if you are that importer, it's important to know your market, know who you're going to be selling to, and make connections ahead of time with wholesalers and retailers. This way, when you bring in a container of clothing, the wholesalers and retailers can meet you at the port and they could buy from you when you open up that container. You can choose to be a wholesaler and have an actual warehouse where you're going to sell that clothing out of the warehouse, which is fine. In that situation, you're going to be able to sell the clothing for more than the importer will be able to, but you're going to have to take on the additional cost of having a warehouse where you're going to be selling that clothing out of. Now, you can also be a retailer. You can open up a boutique. You can open up a boutique in the Palm Spring Mall. You can open up a boutique in downtown Lagos, in Abuja, in Port Harcourt, anywhere in Nigeria. And then again, you have to know the specifications of the market that you're going to be selling to. I could tell you from my experience, the biggest demand I've seen from Nigerians are from the professional and corporate sector, and especially from women. I get a lot of requests for office dresses, office suits. I get a lot of requests for office shoes, for men's dress shirts, but I would say the biggest demand is by women who are working in a professional capacity. Either they're bankers or they're working in a government job. Now, there's also a very big university system in Nigeria, so you might consider selling to the university students, but have in mind that their budgets might be tighter because, of course, they are in school. They're not going to have the same disposable income that a banker will have. So if you can, try to aim your sales to the professional level because they have more money and you could charge more for that clothing. Another way to sell wholesale clothing in Nigeria is to go to an open air market. There are many markets throughout Nigeria. You rent a booth for yourself, or you partner up with someone that has a booth, and then you sell that clothing in the market. if you are selling the clothing in the market, you're going to have a lot of competition because there's going to be a lot of other vendors selling clothing, but you can distinguish yourself by focusing on brand name clothing. In this way, you have an advantage over vendors that don't sell brand name clothing. But even so, have in mind that if the market is big enough, there are going to be other vendors selling brand name clothing, and you are going to be competing on the price. Another way to sell wholesale clothing in Nigeria is by selling clothing directly to the consumers. And how do you do that? You reach out to people that you know. They might be your coworkers. They might go to the same social or religious events that you go to. Make connections with them. Let them know the kind of clothing that you sell. Find out the kind of clothing that they need, and then buy from wholesalers such as myself the type of clothing that they need. Another way to sell clothing in Nigeria is to go to schools, go to nonprofit organizations, partner up with them, make deals with them where they'll sell the clothing to the people who support them, to the people who are part of their organizations, and then share the revenues with them. The advantage of doing that is that they're going to give you a built-in customer base that now you can sell to. Another way to sell wholesale clothing in Nigeria is by advertising on websites such as Nairaland, where you could offer the clothing that you have and people can see what it is that you have available and they can place an order from you, and you could meet up with them, either sell it to them in person or have the merchandise sent to them. Now, when you are going to buy wholesale clothing to be brought to Nigeria, there are many freight forwarders that will aggregate shipments, put them on an airline, and have them sent to Nigeria, and it could be sent on a freight collect basis, so the shipping only needs to be paid once the order arrives in Nigeria, and after you make your payment, they will deliver the order door to door. You have companies like Corporate Messengers, Express Air Freight, Grand Bell, Impex, and there are many other companies. Alright, if you have any questions, please let me know. My website is closeoutexplosion.com. Thank you and have a great day.